dunk on nerds.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Buckeye fans, to your Locked On Buckeyes Squad show after Ohio State's 42-17 win over Tennessee in the first round of the college football playoff. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, and joining me for this special show this evening, it's my guy, Jeff Hunt. He's an Ohio State analyst. And there's Spencer McLaughlin of Locked On College Football and Locked On Ducks. We'll talk about that one later on in the show. But Spencer, I was going to start with you with this one because with this game, I was nervous. I know a lot of Buckeye fans are nervous about how this game was going to go. Ryan Day said in the press conference multiple times this week, we got to do whatever it takes to win the game. And by the way that the Buckeyes played, they did just that.
Are we still firing Ryan Day? I thought he was done. I thought this guy was the village idiot, and Chip Kelly was a washed-up has-been who has no idea how offensive football works. That's what I was reliably informed. So either that was incorrect, or alternatively, I could accept this world too, guys. The SEC is just full of a bunch of bum-ass defenses who have no ability to slow down the vaunted Buckeyes that put up all of 10 points on that field last time that they took it. So it's one or the other, everybody. You know what? Comment section, you let me know. You let me know. You guys are the all-knowing, powerful college football community, shall we say. So you tell me, is Tennessee actually terrible? I don't think so. Or alternatively, did Ryan Day and Chip Kelly have a really bad day against Michigan, but they aren't actually bad coaches? Who would have thought? Who would have thought?
Spencer comes in ready just to haymakers at everybody. We're trying to talk about the game, and he's like, "Hey, is Day getting fired?" I wasn't thinking about Day getting fired.
By the way, let me just throw.
Spencer came in on just like Will Howard came in tonight.
No, I don't think I was as hot as dude. He looked like the best quarterback in the 25 cycle, not named Shedeur Sanders for NFL draft scouts. I mean, he's not obviously, but I mean, could he have looked any better? Yes, he had the interception. It was bad. Okay,
was that a bad interception though?
It's either an interception or a pass interference. One of the two was one.
I guess it's not the worst one I've seen. I watched Kevin Jennings play today, so
that was bad.
I've seen worse interceptions out there. But I mean the deep. But once he hit the deep shot early in the game to Jeremiah Smith, I was going, this is
the first drive.
I just want to jump in on this real quick, and I know that both of you guys are going to agree with this. Those deep balls that that Howard threw to basically put away the game, whether it was early in the game or late, both of those weren't 50-50 balls. Those were 20-80 balls. He put them in great spots for good receivers to get. But I mean, still the throw was pretty good. These weren't Randy Moss jump balls. Howard made. I told Jay before the show started, Howard made 4 of the best throws of his season tonight.
Yeah, I agree. It wasn't a I was talking to a football coach before a game a couple of years ago, and he was going against this offense that was a run and gun, and that's what they called. They had another name for it that rhymed, and he quipped to me, "Yeah, I don't know if it's a run and gun so much as it's a chuck and duck." And I said, "All right." And by the way, that coach won said football game. But I'm with you, Jeff. That was not a chuck and duck exhibition from Will Howard. That was, I'm putting the ball on the money. You just got to go out there and make a little bit of a play. And I think there are a couple thoughts for Ohio State fans here. Number one, all right, Ryan Day can stick around for now. Number two, where was that against Michigan? Where was the attempt? Where was even the idea of let's take these shots down, even if we don't hit them every time? You're not going to go over with that receiving core. And that they came out early on. I thought that face mask call was really big for the crowd.
It was.
Because I thought the broadcast was spot on when they were talking about, if this gets off to a slow start for Ohio State, you're going to have a tense crowd and they're not going to be all into it. I 100% agree. and they were that close to going. Was it 3 and out or 6 and out on the first drive? I think it was 3 and out.
Yeah, it was 3.
Yeah, they were that close to a 3 and out, and then Chip says, "All right, I've got the best freshman receiver still left in college football right now. Yeah. Let's just give him the darn football."
And I want to say something about the crowd, because this came up a lot, and like I know people watching, like I have intel on like the pulse of Ohio State Nation. The whole conversation today was like Vols taking over, the shoe and all these things, and I kept saying that's awesome, because here's what we wound up with. Instead of a bunch of old, like I just want to be clear about the Ohio State crowd. It's 90% old fuddy-duddies that graduated from Ohio State that have season tickets, and they sit in their seats and like they want to win, but whatever. What we had tonight was Tennessee coming up, buying all those tickets because the old fuddy-duddies were going to be too cold. And I was like, the best thing that can happen to Ohio State tonight is the Tennessee fans showing up. And I mean that I'm giving full credit to Tennessee fans. I went down there to a game this year, and that's exactly what happened. Because like now you've thrown some spice into it. Now you've agitated the crowd. I thought the game television-wise came off great. I thought it sounded great. I thought both teams like understood the assignment, and Ohio State was just clearly the better team.
They're clearly the better team, but also I think that broadcast, let's start there. Jeff, you and I watch, Spence, you watch Big Noon all the time. ESPN broadcast blows Fox out of the water.
Oh, not even close.
The big game stuff. The big game, when you compare their Saturday night to what Fox does at Big Noon, dumping all the money, there's no comparison. ESPN, ABC, whatever network blows Fox out of the water every day of the week and twice on Sunday, which is why I'm watching the game, and I'm missing the days when Ohio State was playing on Saturday night on ABC week after week after week, because that broadcast is just that much better.
Yeah, I like a lot of the things that ESPN does. I'm definitely more partial to Fowler over Gus Johnson. I think both analysts are really good, Klatt and Herbstreit. But I think that for whatever reason, when I watch games on ESPN, it seems like they have something in their production process that makes me feel the crowd more.
Mm-hmm.
Like a wall gets lowered or the mics are more. I don't know, because there are a lot of things. I know that those are incredibly complex broadcasts to put on as someone who's a part of a much smaller version of them every week all season long. Most people don't think about how do I get, or how am I seeing this graphic about how many yards Will Howard has? It's like 3 people are involved with that. Just for that simple element, let alone how do we get all of these things in. But I actually got a text from a buddy who's not an Ohio State fan during the game, and he said, is this the first time Ohio State has played a night game all season long? And I had to was there another one that I
think Western Michigan was a night game on Big Ten Network.
Huge game.
And I feel like they may have had a night game or some get what the Peacock game may have been a night game, or I forget exactly when
they had a night. No, I'm saying night game at home. They had a night game at Autzen.
I think the Western Michigan game was a night game on Big Ten Network.
I think that's a shame.
It is,
because it looked and sounded fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I respect the heck out of Tennessee fans for showing up, knowing it was going 100%. To be 18 degrees, and I think it's a compelling storyline when you hear it. Wait, they're like infiltrating their home stadium. It's one thing when you've got a bowl game that's closer to one team than the other, and you go, hey, this team's actually buying up a lot of the tickets, and they're going to have a lot of support. But in the horseshoe, that's that had my attention.
But here's the thing. This is what I loved about this game, and this is why I've dreamed my whole life of this scenario. Tennessee's 5 hours away from Columbus. Awesome. I'm glad they showed up. I think it helped the environment. And you're exactly right. On TV, it came off so much better than honestly the Penn State SMU game was. It looked great from the satellite view, but like it didn't have a feel. And Spencer nailed it. Like it's something about the sound. I personally watched the Skycast, which I think is I wish every football game was broadcast that way, because you guys will agree with me. When you can see what the safeties are doing, you really get a feel for, football. And the last touchdown pass that Howard threw, if you can see it on, the all 22, is like a remarkable pass. But I'm glad you guys brought that up. That's a great thing. Like, because that's what the nation is seeing. You know what I mean? Like, and as a Buckeye, and as someone that, like, that's my stadium, like, I want it to come off as so great, because we get a lot of flack. I went down to Tennessee to watch the game this year, and awesome. Like, when you're in the seats and the spotlights are going, like, it does look really cool, but like it's not that much better, but so, like, I was glad that the shoe got it. I think the star of the show tonight was Will Howard and the horseshoe.
Will Howard, what about his performance, other than what you've already mentioned, Jeff, kind of stands out to you?
Calmness. Like, it did when the game started. I 100% felt that he had, like, was past the Michigan game. That was the biggest thing. The confidence in the arm, you know what I mean? Like, he was throwing the ball before guys were open. Like we already talked about, giving the guys a chance to catch the ball. When it came to running the ball, he was taking the yards that he needed. Like, he really played almost a perfect playoff game. The interception by Tennessee in the end zone, that was a great play by the Tennessee safety. Like, I have no argument here whatsoever. That was a fantastic play. Howard knew when to throw it out of bounds. He knew when to not throw it, into coverage. Just this is what he was brought here for, and he accomplished the assignment. And here's what we can say: a year ago, Will Howard was at the end of the season in the transfer portal from Kansas State, and now he's going to the Rose Bowl in the college football playoff. So, like, he absolutely understood the assignment and has a I don't know, checked all the boxes so far. Jay, how many times have we said it this year? Our theme was, it ain't Will Howard's fault.
Yeah.
That is true. I was especially impressed. I'm glad you used the word calm in there, Jeff, because it didn't look that way on his first throw of the game. If you remember, he's got Emeka Ibuka wide open. Yes, I mean, wide open, and he misses him. Ibuka almost makes a tiptoe circus catch and can't haul it in. And I bet a lot of Ohio State fans looked at that and went, "Oh boy,
you're correct, Spencer."
He hasn't what I said. It. And then all of a sudden,
what I said.
That face mask. I'm not saying that Tennessee wins, but it feels different, at least early in the game. Clearly, Ohio State was always going to be able to lean on him, and Ohio State wasn't going to allow Tennessee to score a lot of points. And I'll, take my L publicly here. I thought Tennessee was pulling the upset. I didn't think the favorites were going to go chalk and go 4-0. They did. And this was the game that I had earmarked as the upset because I thought that Michigan game was hanging over them. And I looked at that offensive line and said, Tennessee's got a nasty defensive front. That offensive line was awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome today. And by the way, for all you Chip Kelly haters out there, Jay, I've been a Chip Kelly defender my entire life. For 15 years, I've been doing this. And how many times was a receiver running wide open? Yes, Will Howard made some awesome throws. The rainbows were just like moving art. I felt like I was bathing in a river of melted chocolate. It was so sweet and smooth and pure. And I was just at the Ghirardelli factory and I jumped right into the production process or something. It was great. But the number of times that Ohio State had a guy run a wide open and that's all Will Howard had to do, I lost track in the first quarter.
Yep. It was awesome.
Like, whatever game plan Chip Kelly and Ryan Day came with, they saw stuff on film that made them go, we can do this, we can do that. And they executed that really, really well.
You know, and let's flip it. I know Jay's about to do this, but like everything you just said, I could flip it to the defensive side of the ball. And this was one of the first times all year, or Ohio State hasn't played a ton of big games. They played Oregon, Indiana, or whatever. But like the Ohio State defense also was like, we want to make them do this. And like it was frustrating. Every time Nico would run for 8 yards, the Ohio State fans were like, my goodness. I'm like, nope. I was like, if Nico runs for 100 yards tonight, we're winning this game. And that's exactly what happened. Shout out to Knowles for not getting cute, not trying to outthink the room, not trying to get the next job, just dropping back in zone. The 4 guys got, the Jack Sawyer again got, great pressure, and just being like, let's make him think a little bit. And if he wants to scramble, let's hit him. Not only did he hit him, they cracked his helmet in the first quarter. Like
that'll
real
send
thing.
A message.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a real thing to happen. So like, I don't want to give credit for the Ohio State defense for not overthinking it and everybody doing their assignment and and kind of flipping the script. It was really like, as much like Chip Kelly's game plan was perfect and Knowles' game plan was like, you know what? Let me just let players be good. And that's all it took tonight.
Jeff knows me very well, knows how my brain works, because the next thing I was going to go to was the defense. After the break, we're going to talk about the Buckeyes defense. And as Spencer thought the Buckeyes were going to be upset by the Volunteers, the Buckeyes defense had different plans. We'll dive into that next. This squad show is brought to you by our friends at Rocket Money. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? That definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. For me, one of the best wrong word. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even have the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. As our squad show rolls on after Ohio State's 42-17 win over Tennessee in the first round of the college football playoff, one thing that kind of stood out to me when it came to this defense was they set the tone early in the game. They quickly let Ohio State do some different things defensively that were kind of eye-opening to me, and seeing how some of the different things that they were doing, they worked early and they set the tone and really didn't let Tennessee get any traction or get any confidence early in the game. They got up big by the offense's help, but the defense said no. Whatever Tennessee was going to try, the Buckeyes are going to have an answer for. And that's really big because I didn't anticipate the Buckeyes defense playing this sound today, holding Tennessee to a total yardage output of 256. I believe that's the lowest offensive total yardage for the entire season. But this defense showed up ready to play. The front four got pressure. The front four set the tone.
Because they were playing those cupcake teams in the SEC.
There's always one.
They weren't ready for Big Ten football.
There's always one cupcake, and today it was the Volunteers. The defense, man, hats off. I mean, you can start from the Tui Maloa or Tylik Williams, go to Cody Simon, Caleb Downs, whoever you want to go to. I mean, they got the job done.
Is Lathan Ransom like the unheralded MVP of this Ohio State defense?
I feel like
every time I watch Ohio State, he is hitting somebody somewhere, and not he doesn't hit guys just to hit him. He's hitting the right guys in the right way.
He is such a downhill safety. Like NFL teams have to be like, I hope we can pick that guy up in the 5th round because he will be a starter for 7
I don't know if he's going to fall that far.
Well, I know, but I'm saying like that's what they're hoping. They're like, I hope Spencer does not talk about Lathan Ransom because we want to snag this guy. You're exactly right. You said it so well. He hits the right guy. He was absolutely the second best player in the game tonight. It was phenomenal.
Yeah, and there is an aspect of Tennessee's offense that is better in people's heads than it actually is on the field. Mm-hmm. And I talked about the Vols
conversation
coming into this playoff stretch, and I've compared them to the Kansas City Chiefs because when most people, the average fan, shall we say, however casual or informed level, like just wherever you're at, the average fan, you think of Tennessee in the last couple of years, and you have dancing sugar plum memories of Hendon Hooker throwing the ball up and down the field and these big explosive, and the run game isn't really there. It isn't really there. And then all of a sudden it is there, but they're explosive. They're dynamic. That's what the Chiefs were early on with Andy Reid. Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, weapon here, random guy there. All about now you watch the Chiefs play and you go, this kind of feels like Brady with the Patriots. Like, just stink it up for 3 quarters, and then in the fourth go, okay, here's 10 points when we need it, and we're going to go down, and we are flawless situationally. And Tennessee obviously doesn't have that component, but the Chiefs have become a defense and ball control team. And Tennessee, why I thought they'd win this game, is what travels in the weather. Defense, run game. Well, the Ohio State defense took away everything that Tennessee wanted to do, and the defense did not show up in a big way. And I just looked at Tennessee and said, it's not how everyone thinks they could do it, but I think they could win it all because defense and running game will take you everywhere, and you just need Nico to be average. But, boy, I don't know what it is about the Josh Heupel offense and Nico right now after his first season starting, but is he incapable of getting to a second progression in any passing concept? Any of them, anywhere? Like Josh Heupel was out there in the third quarter, down 21 points, and he's dialing up bubble screens like I'm playing EA College Football 25, hoping my guys will miss a tackle on the other side. Like, there is nothing about this passing game that is explosive, consistent, dynamic, or even stable. Yeah. It is barely there when it needs to be. And I know that Josh Heupel's got the offensive ability. I think that after they burst on the scene in 2022, it looks to me like everyone in college football has just figured him out.
Yeah.
They look at these wide splits and say, here's the answer, and there's been no counter.
No. Yeah, no, it goes back to what I said. I was like, after Ohio State lost to Michigan, I was like, here's the deal. The one game that was probably 90% locked in was Ohio State, Tennessee after the last week of the college football season. And I'm like, if Ohio State's not ready for Tennessee in 20 days, then they're never going to be ready. And you just said everything. Like, I remember going to Tennessee and I'm sitting there and watching the game, and I'm like, all my thoughts were what you just said, Spencer. I'm like, okay, like it's a one read, like everything is banked on like breakaways or big runs or breaking tackles or whatever. And then like all today and like all the pregame and everything, they're like, Tennessee spread you out really wide. And this is what always gets me when they talk about an offense. And it's something a little different. I'm like, well, why wouldn't everyone do that? Like if Tennessee's offense was the way to win college football championships, Georgia would do it.
Correct.
Alabama would do it.
Correct.
All these teams would do it. And it's exactly what Spencer just said. Like, it's not like for some reason they thought that the Ohio State corners couldn't handle the edge. They didn't only handle the edge. They actually would have won the game if it wasn't for a whatever you want to call that penalty, on a late hit or, whatever. Like Igbinosa, like they won. The edges won. Like Burke and Igbinosa won the game. So then all of a sudden when going way out to the sidelines doesn't work, Well, now what do you do? So essentially, like Tennessee's offense is built on we're great as long as the other team isn't as good as us. And then tonight it caught up with them.
Kind of sounds like they're just good and not great.
Yeah, exactly. And I've said that a lot about Ohio State too. I want to be totally fair. I'm like, Ohio State will beat any team that's not as good as them. But tonight,
Might
Tennessee,
be one notable exception in there, but yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
No,
we'll talk about that later.
No.
We'll save that
I
for
totally
like the
agree.
final 5 minutes of the show.
I 1000% agree. That's why that game was such a big. But I mean, Tennessee ran in the same thing tonight. They're like, "Oh, we'll come in and do this and that." Like I understand what the taste in everybody's mouth was after the Michigan game, but regardless, Ohio State has a lot of really physical, good football players. And it looked like tonight, like after, I don't know, the first couple series, like Tennessee was like, well, we didn't want to do this. Like we didn't think this is what we were going to have to deal with. And that's what it looked like in their eyeballs. Kind of like what Indiana looked like against Notre Dame. Like, wait a minute. We didn't sign up for this. You know what I mean? Like our coach told us it was going to be way easier than this. And it wasn't.
By the way, point of order. Indiana played Ohio State closer than Tennessee did.
Yeah.
Oops.
Yeah, sure did.
That's actually sadly true.
Yes, it is. It's not wrong. Just sadly true, Jeff. It's Tennessee aggressively true. Because remember, and think about it like this. 42-17 versus, was it 38 to 38 what?
15. They went for 2. And
yeah,
they got
right. 38-15. Ryan Day didn't have to score that last touchdown for Ohio State. He wanted to get it to a 23-point win. Tennessee scored when this game was already a bigger margin than it ever was. Lane Kiffin has to be shaking in his boots right now as the biggest whiner in college football at the moment. Put him on the side of milk cartons because I don't think he's tweeted in like 5 hours.
He's nothing to say. He has nothing to say at all.
No. It's just... Oh, man.
That's actually a great point.
The SEC fans were having a field day. See, this is why you should have let in a 9-3 SEC team that lost to Vanderbilt and Oklahoma, or a 9-3 team that lost to Kentucky. This is why you should have done. Boom! Biggest loss by margin of victory in the entire first round.
Got creamed. Tennessee got beat worse than SMU. That's all I want to say out loud. Like an absolute.
Oh, wow. I didn't even think
we're talking about a Tennessee team that was good. Like they have athletes. They have
100%. Yeah, this is not.
And it wasn't even. It really wasn't even close. Like as an Ohio State fan, I was still nervous. But like if you separate yourself from it and you just look up there and you see two teams and you don't know the names, you're like, well, that team is kicking the snot out of that team. And that was actually the biggest takeaway from the playoff weekend. But it just worked out in my favor, that I was Ohio State. But but that's a great point. Tennessee got beat worse than Indiana did.
That's bad. I didn't even think about that. I didn't put 2 and 2 together. I know this defense, when I think about.
Keep in mind, Tennessee almost. I just want to say real quick, Tennessee almost went to the SEC championship game. Like we're not talking about we got
Georgia needed 8 overtimes to beat Georgia Tech. Just throwing it out there. But the other thing too is the way that Ohio State won by 20 or more points was I'm not saying fluky. I'm saying flukier than what Ohio State just did to Tennessee. By a landslide. You had a punt debacle and a punt return touchdown. Those don't happen very often. Mm-mm. You take those out of the game, Ohio State still wins, but it's closer. Yep. What do you need to do for Tennessee to be closer in this game?
Will Howard.
Let's start.
Throw the ball behind him.
Well, why don't we start with the face mask and say maybe Ohio State doesn't score then? Then it's only 40. Yeah. Sorry, I can't count that high. How many points did the Buckeyes have today? That Tennessee defense is real. Go look at what they just did on their SEC slate. They just went through that conference, and they were dominant. They were so good.
And here's the
thing.
They
couldn't stop Ohio State.
And not only that, like what really stood out to me is, the story of the year for Ohio State fans was the offensive line, like bad injuries, reshuffling and all that. If you go and look at the gaps that Ohio State offensive line was making in the running game, that's what stood out. I mean, you could drive Greyhounds through some of the holes that they were making. And then, of course, what's that do? That lets Will Howard, launch a couple of those balloon balls. But, I mean, that was the key. But, again, all we heard all week was like, well, this Tennessee defensive line is one of the best in the country. It's exactly like Michigan. I'll say at this point, blah, 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 and they torched them.
Let's pause that conversation on the offensive line, pick it up after the break, because I have my own thoughts about what the Buckeyes offensive line did today, and it's really impressed me because I did not expect them to play this well. We'll pick this up, continue this after the break as the squad show rolls on after Ohio State beat Tennessee in the CFP. This squad show is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. One of my favorite things about Game Time is one of the numerous ways they allow you to make your ticket purchasing process a whole lot easier. They allow you to see your price all in one. You get a panoramic view from your seat. They have the lowest price guarantee, and they also have the Game Time ticket coverage, and all of it is geared to help you take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. As the squad show rolls on after Ohio State's 42-17 win over Tennessee in the first round of the college football playoff, we all came into this game really not knowing. Well, I almost speak for myself. I didn't know what to expect from the Buckeyes offensive line. I got really annoyed, and Ryan Day said we're going to rotate at the guard position. And when I saw Luke Montgomery come in and Tegra Shabola go out, I'm thinking, oh, here we go. Here's this rotation. Here's where things are about to go bad. And then when Holly Rose said that Josh Fryer's ankle was heavily taped, here we go. Who's the backup right tackle? I don't know. I was surprisingly impressed with how the offensive line played today and how they opened up holes and how they really helped Will Howard have time to throw the ball. You talk about those throws earlier, Jeff and Spencer, that Will Howard made earlier. You don't really expect the quarterback to have that kind of time when you're playing backup center, backup guard. You're moving your guard to tackle. You don't expect to have the time to make those throws, but he had time over and over and over again. And I got to give my hat off and tip of the cap to the entire offensive line: Justin Fry, Chip Kelly, Ryan Day, Carlos Lockwood, RB coach, everybody involved, just for simply doing what is needed to get the job done. We're not in class, Spencer. You don't have to raise your hand.
Yeah, I know I'm being rhetorical. I think that the offensive line was the biggest surprise for me in this game. And as an Oregon guy, this is what I was looking for. This is what I was watching, I should say, to watch this game as a, scout of sorts for Oregon's Rose Bowl matchup, which I'm sure we'll get to. But I was looking for, what's that Michigan offensive line? Because that Tennessee front is nasty. Who can tell me how many sacks James Pearson Company compiled tonight for the Don't look it up, Jay, you cheater.
I'm not even on the page yet. I was there. I was almost there.
Well, don't look it up. How many sacks do you think Tennessee had tonight?
I'd say 0. It's absolutely 0.
The three of us combined for the same number of sacks as the Tennessee Volunteers defense, which, by the way, I know is good. I'm just that impressed with Ohio State. And Oregon fans asked me going into this game, hey, who would you rather play, Ohio State or Tennessee? I said, well, I see this over here. I'm not really sure about the mood around Ohio State. Buckeyes look a lot more terrifying after this game because of the way the offensive line played. And there were aspects of Tennessee that certainly had me concerned. I think that, I know that Vegas would have had Oregon as a bigger favorite over Tennessee than they would Ohio State. And because of this game, it's open as Ohio State -1.5. It's probably going to be another coin flip game at the Rose Bowl in the semifinal there. But what I told Oregon fans is what I'll say here, and it remains true. What we saw in the Michigan game was not an adjustment of Ohio State's ceiling. It was an adjustment of Ohio State's floor. So we thought the floor was here and the ceiling was here. And it turns out Michigan showed, their floor is down here. But this upper end of what they are capable of didn't change, because that performance they put on tonight is how the offense always could have looked. And the potential was always there. So if that offensive line is going to play like that, and I don't know what to expect from the Oregon defensive line now, because they got pushed around by Penn State. They only had 1 sack, and they did not have consistent pressure on Drew Aller in the Big Ten championship game. They get torched for 37 points, which is far more than they ever should have allowed. And the Nittany Lions ran for 290 yards. So they're going to be incredibly rested. I expect them to play better. But that Ohio State offensive line was the biggest thing I was watching coming into this game. And they wildly outperformed even what I thought the best performance they could have had. That was really, really impressive.
Yeah, it was crazy. Like, I thought the thing that really jumped off the page, like, I knew what Howard and the receivers could do. I knew what the defense could do, but it was really the offensive line and what Henderson did at running back was like when he was getting 5 or 6 yards a carry. I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but I was like, they were easy yards.
Yeah,
the holes were there. They didn't even really have to lean on Judkins, even though they could have. Like, either one of those running backs could have, like, they kind of had their pick if they could run the ball. But that's not how it's been for the last basically month and a half, 6 weeks of Ohio State football. And that's what jumped out. It was like, oh, wow, like they can run the ball behind the offensive line, not because of the talent at running back, because that's what Ryan Day has leaned on too much over the last 4 years, is like his talent at running back. Eventually they'll break one. Like, Jay, that. Like, we all know that. This was like, these were just guys like, I don't know, I'll take those 5 yards. Like, it was second instead of 3rd and 7. Like, every Ohio State fan, you guys, any Ohio State fan, we're always in 3rd and 7. It's been like that for a long time. Tonight was like 2nd and 5, 3rd and 2. And then, it was like, take some easy yards. Will Howard started getting behind the offensive line. It felt like he could get a first down whenever he wanted. So, like, that was the thing. It was like the point of contact yards that Ohio State was able to get tonight was what we've been searching for all season. And then now when you throw a couple of really good running backs behind that, well, okay, maybe we have something. Maybe they've, like they've regrouped and gelled, and now we have something. So again, that goes back to like the last 20 days of coaching, super proud of Ohio State. And also, like, wait a minute, if we can run the ball for 5 yards a carry, now we have a team that might be able to compete for a national championship.
Let's look ahead real quick there, because you mentioned something that is going to be I think it's going to be needed against Oregon in the Rose Bowl. You say if they can average 5 yards of carry. Tonight they had 4.7 yards of pop. Henderson had 80 yards. Will Howard had 37 yards on 5 carries. Judkins 34 on 10. So that's not really the best for Judkins. But Spence, let's turn it over to you. You're talking about that matchup. I know we're going to talk about it a little bit later on in the show. I think Ohio State has the possibility of averaging 5 yards of pop against Oregon. But if I had to say right now, will they do it? I would say no, just because that's a big jump from doing it this week, a couple more weeks. Also, you have the psychological thing of realizing the last time y'all played them, you struggled to run the ball. It was also when you lost your left tackle, so trying to fix things on the fly. My gut right now says no, that Ohio State would not average 5 yards of pop against Oregon, which makes me nervous about what the Buckeyes might do in that game on New Year's Day.
I'm inclined to believe you, but I just watched Katron Allen and Nick Singleton run roughshod. Now, Penn State runs differently than Ohio State does. Schematically, it is not the same. And one thing I think gets overlooked in discussion amongst fans and even media is the chess match between coaches in the running game. The only thing you really hear about it from broadcast tandems is, do you have an extra safety in the box or do you have two deep safeties? Like, that's about it. And by the way, it was a legitimate chess match. You see that go back and forth all the time. What I saw Penn State do in the Big Ten championship game is something Ryan Day and Chip Kelly are going to look at, and I imagine they're going to have new looks for. And I obviously don't watch Ohio State quite as much as you guys, but I remember Chip Kelly doing this from his time back at Oregon is, week to week, he would kind of change the base formations that he would run with. Mm-hmm. Ran a lot of the same concepts, but he'd window dress it a little. Or they would have different plays that they would only run that week. And it was very distinct to where the offense was always in shotgun, but it was never looking the same week to week. And sometimes they'd bring back certain formations if they, like to match up against certain defense. But the way that coordinators duel it out, whatever, in the run game, I hate when I get caught in between words. It is fascinating. And what Andy Kotelnicki did to confuse this Oregon defense was they used a lot of tempo, they used a lot of motion, they used a lot of shifts in formation. They did all of those things. They're hallmarks of the Andy Kotelnicki offense, which I imagine is wildly confusing to try and learn.
Yes.
Wildly hard. But once you get it, that's what it can look like. And so is Ohio State going to suddenly, work a Kotelnicki offense top to bottom, integrated in the next 11 days? No, I seriously doubt they'll do that. But conceptually, there is no way that those two guys aren't going to watch that film and go, oh, so here's how they ran the ball well. They incorporated a little bit of quarterback run. They used a lot of zoom motion across with receivers and running backs to challenge the eye discipline of the Oregon linebackers. They were testing the gap discipline of the defensive linemen with those same sorts of concepts, and they ran all over the place. Yeah. All over the place. So I am most interested to see how that pans out.
No, I think you nailed it, because that was one thing that stood out to me tonight. Here's the thing. I watched this game, just me and my wife watched the game, and I'm, losing my mind, as I do. But the one thing I kept shouting, and my wife is, constantly like, I don't know who you're talking to. I'm the only one sitting here. So you guys get the brunt of it. But, Spencer, you touched on it. I was like, oh my gosh, they're using the tight end. They're running motion. They got shifts and all these things, and like everything that you just said. And I was like, this is what I've been waiting for all year. Now, again, when you have Jeremiah Smith on the outside, that is like, you guys will agree, that's like having another blocker, maybe two offensive linemen when you have to worry about him. But that's why you do that. But I totally agree. Like tonight, like I thought Scott Jr. had one of the greatest games he's had as an Ohio State Buckeye. But shout out to Chip Kelly for recognizing the failures that he had through the season and being like, hey, I'm not going to beat my head against the wall here. We're going to restart things, and we're going to do things a little different. And as soon as like Howard starts sending guys in motion, I'm like, holy cow, like I think we've got a chance here. And then it went from there. But like, yeah, I totally agree. I think the world's been waiting for this Oregon Ohio State rematch this season. I still think Oregon's a great team. I think Ohio State's a really good team. Mm-hmm. And here's the thing. This is one of those games that like the loser is not bad. Yes, but the loser is not bad. The loser is not a bad team. And the winner is a really good team, but the loser is not a bad team. It's amazing. You couldn't play it at a better place between more contrasting programs. Like, here's the winner here, Nike. Like Nike's just like
Phil Knight.
Yep, Nike's like, yeah, whatever, we're good.
We're going to go ahead, Spencer.
Well, Jay, you and I talked a couple times on shows over the summer about how many times is Oregon going to meet Ohio State. In any of the scenarios we laid out, was there ever a world where we landed on 2, but 1 in the regular season and 1 in the Rose Bowl? I don't think either. I never even conceptualized that as a possibility. Like it's so wild. But
and that being said, Oregon's the team that's getting screwed here because they were the best team in college football this year, and they're like, who do we get first? Oh, Ohio State.
The one team, like honestly,
while Penn State's playing SMU.
If you were to if anyone were to power rank the teams that are remaining, who isn't putting Oregon and Ohio State 1-2?
Exactly.
Maybe someone tosses Texas in there. Okay.
Yeah. Like Ohio State,
Ohio State. Texas hasn't beaten anyone that good, but okay.
No.
Ohio State messed up. You know, they changed the path of their season. Oregon did nothing wrong in their first playoff games.
I mean, yeah, like the end result.
Yeah, but I want to be.
Did you watch the Idaho game, man? That wasn't right.
Like, Oregon's like, I don't know. We won all of our games, and I'm not saying they can't beat Ohio State by any means, but I'm saying like, wait a minute.
Oh yeah,
Penn State's over here playing Boise State, and they've lost the only 2 tough games they played. Oregon's like, oh great, we get Ohio State. Like that's an awesome. Yeah. Even if you win, it's like the NFL playoffs. And this is why we all love the 12 team. Even if you win, you're like somebody's hurt, like somebody's dinged up, somebody's sore. You know what I mean? Like Oregon's like, what did we do to deserve?
Yeah, I mean, there was a comment that rolled through earlier, and someone said, you know, why is the national championship in the quarterfinal round? I think that's a fair way to look at it. Not entirely, because
in the NCAA tournament sometimes in the Elite Eight, you kind of realize the winner of this matchup is going to win the Final Four, the whole tournament.
Yeah,
anyway.
it happens.
This is a Duke Kentucky situation.
Yeah, it is
a little bit. It does kind of feel that way. Well, Kentucky doesn't go to the Elite Eight anymore.
Wow.
Going back to the 90s on that one.
The dynamic is.
I'm a lot older than Spencer.
I mean, I remember when they did, but I mean, Calipari isn't the coach elsewhere because they just decided to show him the door.
Coach K, was that Rick Pitino back then?
I'm old enough that I remember the Leitner shot. That's how old I am.
I watched documentaries about that.
Exactly. People, I'm at the age to where people apologize for how old I am. They're like, like that was a great 30 for 30.
Oh, it was fantastic. I hate Christian Leitner. It's one of my.
I just watched it.
It's one of my favorites by far. I want to just say one last thing, and then I'm going to hop out and let you guys carry the end of it, because Zach said 8 out of 10, so I'm about at an 8, I think.
You did your part, Spencer.
The matchup being in this particular round is, on the one hand, worthy of criticism, 100%, because how else can you view what you've done but devaluing the regular season, not just by expanding the playoff, but by creating all these silly auto buys and whatnot, that the team that has the best and only undefeated regular season at the FBS level, Montana State's undefeated at FCS, but the only team that does that gets Ohio State for game 1. So on the one hand, yes, that should be corrected. On the other hand, that thought is not even going to come close to entering that locker room in Eugene.
Totally agree. Agree.
And I think that at the end of the day, the upside, if you're an Oregon fan feeling uneasy about that, I understand why. Ohio State look really good. They are really good. It wasn't easy to win, and that was at home. There was the botched review in the first quarter, but that was still that was going to be a tough game no matter what. Oregon squeaks by at home. If that's neutral site or on the road, I don't know that they win that game. But the upside for Oregon fans here is, if they go on to win their next 3 games, there are exactly 0 people who can say they coasted with an easy path. No one. You will have beaten Ohio State. You will have beaten Boise State, who's a playoff team. You will have beaten Penn State in the national championship game. Michigan, when they were improved. Illinois is a top 20 team. No one's going to be able to argue the path. So at least there's that. But is it the path of least resistance? Nope. Penn State is unquestionably better off They had to play an extra game, yes. But that extra game didn't prove to be very challenging for them. So they now have a better path to get to the semifinal than does Oregon. But if you're capable of really winning the national championship, it shouldn't matter.
No, I totally agree. And there's always, you know what? If nothing else, there's always offensive pass interference. Like you can always.
We're not going to relitigate that blatantly obvious call. Tell me we're not. I tell you, what little hair I keep on my head, I was yanking out when I was watching Klatt say, for offensive pass interference, you need to have the arm extension and you need to actually move the defensive back. As we're watching the video of the arm extending and the defensive back going 3 yards in the other direction.
I agree, man. It's like sometimes the other player is just better than you. Yep. Sometimes the other player is just way better than you. Like we got
one more break. I'm going to kill this vibe here real quick. Spencer has to hop out, and Jeff and I are going to close the show.
Spencer's been great, man.
Yeah.
Talk about Ryan Day.
Great, Chad.
Talk about Ryan Day and the Oregon matchup, and we may pick
Ryan Day.
Are we back? Easy,
an
unofficial thing. Easy. I'm out of here, guys. I'm not going anywhere. One more break up out of here. We'll be back and talk about Day and more of the Oregon matchup that's coming up on New Year's Day. This squad show is brought to you by our friends at Rocket Money. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? That definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. All right, Jeff, we don't have much time left in the show, so we're just going to get right into it. I was nervous about Ryan Day and what was going to happen in this game. I was nervous about Chip Kelly and what was going to happen in this game. I had all the faith in Jim Knowles and the belief that Jim Knowles would knock it out of the park once again. He did that. I mean, anytime you hold a team under 300 total yards of offense, you're doing something right. Tennessee only had 152 rushing yards, only 104 passing yards. And those rushing yards, that was one where I didn't think they would hit the century mark because they really struggled. Honestly, if Dylan Sampson doesn't go down, I don't know what happens at the rushing attack because it seemed like with him on the field, they figure out a solution to slow him down. He goes out for a little bit, and all of a sudden, Tennessee can run the ball. I'm thinking, wait a minute. If this is your solution, I know that he's the SEC Player of the Year. Maybe y'all should just not use him in the same ways you are. But Jim Knowles knocked out of the park. Chip Kelly got it right.
Yeah.
Ryan Day is going to be the one that we look back and say, hey, you gotta win in the first home football game in December in the shoe, a first round playoff game the Buckeyes are playing in. For all the negative conversations you and I have had on a show, off a show about Ryan Day, our belief in him, our dislike for him, our like for him doesn't matter. Ryan Day got it done tonight, and he needs to be praised for that.
And I want to be clear, Jay, like you nailed it. This was a coaching game. This wasn't we happen to have better players. This wasn't Tennessee, for whatever reason. Like, no, this was a coaching game. Ohio State was prepared. Ohio State had a game plan on both sides of the ball. And what I want to, say is, like, as you said, Knowles knew what he was doing. There was also a combination of Knowles' defense. This was the first time to where I felt like the defensive side of the ball and the offensive side of the ball were on the same page.
Yes.
Because I was never at any point in that game like, oh my gosh, I can't believe the offense isn't doing their part. Or a couple years ago, we were like, oh, the defense isn't. this was synergy. This was the first time since 2019 Clemson that we were like, they've got a plan. And I'm going to give, like, as hard as we've been on Ryan Day, like we've had several shows of, like, honestly discussing Ryan Day's, future.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what's funny. Like, he had a plan. Here's what we know right now. And this is as simple as it can be. Ohio State Buckeyes are in, the second round of the playoffs with a chance to win the national championship. So I'm not, like, that's all I ask. And he had 20 days to get ready for Tennessee, a tough team, coming up from the SEC and all that. And they squashed it. Like, it wasn't even a question. Like, all the players looked like they knew the assignment. All the defensive players looked like they knew what was going on. Like, this was the first time this season, and I was like, every player's on the same page. And I have to give credit. This is a classic. Like, I have to give credit where credit's due. It was fantastic, Jay. It was a great performance from the entire coaching staff. The energy was high. The game was called well. Like, it was just fantastic. This wasn't if something would have happened, you would have lost. No, this was like, you came up here as a good SEC team and we beat the crap out of you. We knew what you were going to do and we did it first. Super impressive. Like, honestly, like one of the most impressive Ryan Day games that we've had. And I know that bothers me because now I don't know what to do with this situation, but it is what it is, man. You got to give credit where credit's due. It was a great coaching performance by the coaching staff.
We're not going to do the conversation about should Ryan Day be fired or does the result of the Oregon game dictate Ryan Day's fate as a Buckeyes head coach. We're not doing that today. No. Jeff and I actually might do that later on next week. I haven't talked
it doesn't about now, that, though.
No, it doesn't matter. Let's praise him, man. Right after the game, let's praise him for what he did. But Jeff, I have a question for you. Kind of a scale of 1 to 10. We're going to close it up with this. Got a few minutes left.
Okay.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you that Ryan Day will provide a similar level of preparation and game plan for the Rose Bowl against Oregon? 1 being you're least confident, 10 being how the most confident.
I'll go to 7,
okay.
because here's the mistake that the Ryan Day's teams have made in the past, that this is what separated him from Urban Meyer, is because against Tennessee, it worked. Like, everything they saw against Tennessee was exactly what they got. So everything worked. But like, what happens is if a team comes out a little different, it seems to be like Ryan Day is like, oh, like everything we just did for the last 2 weeks is out the window. I don't know what to do now. As to where like Urban Meyer could adjust on the fly a little better. Ryan Day has not proven that he can adjust on the fly as well as some of these guys. So like, I'll say a 7. If you watch and I think Spencer touched on it great. If you watch the Oregon versus Penn State game, if that's the team that you're getting, I have an 8 out of 10 confidence that Ohio State will be completely ready for that team. But what happened in the first Oregon game this year was Oregon came out a little bit different and caught them off guard and Ohio State dug a hole they couldn't get out of. So I guess it's a chess match right now between, but if I'm Oregon, I think Spencer touched on it. If I'm Oregon, I'm like, uh-oh. Like, I don't know what's coming. So like, that's a credit to Ryan Day as to where like right now, Oregon's coaching staff is like, we have a lot of film to watch. We do not know which Ohio State team we are playing. So that's also a credit, to the coaching staff and Ryan Day.
Jeff, I want to go 8. And it's not that I have the utmost confidence or belief in Ryan Day as an overall elite head coach. Ryan Day this week said we have to do whatever it takes to win. And normally in Ryan Day's tenure, he said that, but hasn't backed it up on the field. He's won a lot of games where he said some stuff that we're going to do this, going to do that. We haven't seen that on the field. This is one of the first times in a while where Ryan Day said something in the middle of the week during a press conference, and that thing has showed up in a massive way on the field. So my belief in Ryan Day instant reaction after the game is I have no reason to not believe that Ryan Day is going to do that against Oregon, because he literally said he's going to do that after the worst loss of his career. Hey, we're going to do whatever it takes to beat Tennessee. He did that, opened up the playbook. Defense played phenomenal. They got pressure with just 4. Dude, they're looping Tyleik Williams around Tuimoloau, and I'm thinking, why are you guys waiting until game 13 to do this? So my thoughts about Ryan Day as an overall coach, I still have my own questions about the man. But right now in the moment, he showed me we're going to do whatever it takes to win a game, and he just did that.
Yeah.
So I have no other reason, just based off the past 7 days, to believe anything else than that Ryan Day is going to do. Now, it's an 8. It's not a full 10. There is still a little bit of doubt in there, because I do have a little bit of reason. If we go past the 7 days, we got a whole lot of reason. Ryan Day said, rivalry this, rivalry that, you lost 4 in a row. And one of them, we know for sure there was nothing illegal going on. 2023, I'm not going to tamper and do anything with that. But Jeff, I'm at an 8. We gotta get up out of here. The show went by so fast. But I appreciate you coming on the show, man. I appreciate Spencer hopping on the show.
It was great, man.
First Locked On Buckeyes Squad show. We revamped and did some things different.
We'll see you on January 1st. Can't wait.
January 1st. I sure hope Jeff's wife allows him some free time to talk to his buddy Jay on the pod, because this is fun. Not sure who else will join us for that show. But guys, thank y'all for tapping in live. It is 12:47 in the morning. Buckeye fans are wild and crazy. Love the Buckeyes, and we'll be back. Well, the Monday's show is still going to be here. We got wait. Christmas next week. Got New Year's the week after that, and the week after Christmas. We all know it's Buckeyes. It's Ducks. A rematch of that game. That was a game number 6 for the Buckeyes. It's New Year's Day, and unlike the first meeting during the regular season, this is win or go home. That's what's the mindset of that game. We could build it up, hype it up. That's all we could do. But I'm out of here. Follow him on Twitter at jhunt006. Follow me on the same platform at jsteven07. Buckeye fans, thank you for tapping in tonight. Buckeyes win. They beat Tennessee 42-17. First round college football playoff matchup. Buckeyes win that one. They advance to play Oregon in the Rose Bowl on New Year's Day.